Good morning. Another week, another week. Hey, Adeel.
Hi,
Hey.
Bowie. How are you?
Really good. I am trotting all over the continent this morning. Hadeel and I are connecting. I'm in Johannesburg, and she is in Egypt. How's Egypt this morning?
It's lovely. It's quite chilly. Yeah.
It's quite yeah, to be on the opposite side of the continent. This is how big we. This is how diverse we are. Okay, well, to
Exactly.
get started, my name is Buyi Mafoko. I'm an entrepreneur, a luxury consultant, as well as a speaker, setting out to really contribute to Africa's luxury growth. Africa on Luxury as a platform is a luxury education driving conversation and chronicling the story of Africa. And we draw context and connection to the tastemakers thereof. And I've got one in the room today, in the virtual room, that is. With this podcast, we embark on a series of culturally rich conversations seeking to explore, inform, and create a unique definition and discovery of African luxury. On each episode, I get the pleasure of bringing guests in from whom we can draw context, really going on this beautiful journey of discovering the richness of the continent to chronicle the story of African luxury through the perspective of art and the artists contributing to various sectors. And this morning, I have Hadeel Osman, a conversation that I've really been looking forward to because we connected so beautifully when we had our initial chat. And we're speaking about decoding sustainability for African fashion brands. And I mean, sustainability is loaded, and I really hope that we can unpack it this morning because it has different meanings, I suppose, and it also is very quickly and easily lost to certain people. But the responsibility and the journey that we really go on here on this podcast is to bring our audiences closer to understanding. And I am very keen myself because I cannot claim to know sustainability. I know aspects of it. I've been introduced to nuances of it. I'd like to believe I live my life to some degree in a conscious aspect, not fully, I must state. And I don't know actually, and we can get into this as we chat, whether one can fully live a sustainable life, right? But to formally introduce you, because I don't want to take this away and I want my guests to fully be immersed in this discussion. Hadeel Osman is an award-winning Sudanese creative director and sustainable fashion consultant. She's also the founder of a multidisciplinary creative studio called DAVU Studio. She's a multi-hyphenate professional, which some of her roles or the hats that she wears include creative direction, visual communications, sustainable fashion research, which is really where we'll spend time this morning. She also styles, directs, consults, and trains. And I mean, how old are you?
I'm 32.
I know, right? It's all possible. She's worked in multiple markets such as Asia, North America, and Africa, from which she hails, the beautiful Sudan. Hadeel's work seeks to actively reshape the world's view of African fashion and collaboration across the region. She's also an advocate for less consumption of fast fashion and fashion waste among African consumers, driving this change and development across the continent. And I hope to really land a lot of this and to have my audiences experience a lot of this by the end of this conversation. And you will, I'm confident of that. She is currently actively researching the continental, for the continent, secondhand and resale fashion, which are also aspects of sustainability. Some highlights: bars on bars. She was named the Forbes, part of the Forbes Africa 30 under 30 list in 2020. She's been named one of the 100 most influential young Africans, as well as on the list of the women fighting fast fashion, both in 20 and 2021 respectively. And she also holds the UIU Emerging Alumni Award in 2021. What does UIU stand for?
It's Upper Iowa University. It's my alma mater.
I'm with you. Okay, jumping straight into it. I would like to, it's really an invitation, and I think I'm inviting myself to this conversation because you are the expert here. And I'm going to act and represent my audiences as much as possible in really decoding some of what sustainability as a universe is. I don't believe we'll get through all of it, but keen to explore, and I think we'll have a lot more insight by the end of this conversation. So to get us started, sustainability has always existed, and this is my personal view. I'm presenting this as a hypothesis, and I want us to delve into it with the conversation. In my view, sustainability has always existed in Africa by virtue of how we've always lived a well-considered life. I mean, dating back to our ancestors, and I think you and I touched on this when we met. We've always lived a very conscious and communal life. Is sustainability, I mean, what is sustainability? Let's start there.
So I always say that sustainability is an umbrella term that we need to like break down according to how you view it and your real life experience. But sustainability in from the African context, or at least the definition that I like to go with, is that it is being resourceful, using what you have, and returning goodness back to the earth. So you're not really you're not harming the earth, you're not harming the people around you, you're making use of what you have and you're making it last for as long as possible. And I also always say that it is deeply rooted within our cultures, our system, our just Africanness. Sustainability is completely natural to us. And that gets lost, of course, with the modern interpretation of what it is, with capitalism getting a hold of it and trying to change what it means. But essentially, it's about living a good life, giving back, and it's just all around goodness. And a lot of people forget what that means because of how it's being portrayed. But within sustainability, in fashion especially, there's many other terms. There's slow fashion, there's circular fashion, and there's ethical fashion, there's eco. So there's many, that's why it's an umbrella term. But essentially, it's just about being good to the planet, being good to people, and giving back.
I mean, thank you for that. And I do want to take a step back because I think there's so much that you've teased there that I don't want us to miss. I mean, I've introduced you based on your bio, which is a very professional and well-written dossier, if I may. But I'd like you to really introduce ourselves to us because I think you've got such a beautiful background and history and your culture that really would be a great basis for understanding in terms of how this has even shaped you getting into the sustainable work. So who is Hadeel? All of it, the beautiful aspect of it.
So essentially, I'm a third culture kid. I always start with this. I was born and raised in many different places, but at the end of it, I'm a Pan-Africanist at heart. I'm Sudanese, and I like to look at things from a career aside. Whatever I do, I like to be as good as possible, whether it's the people that I'm working with, people that I'm dealing with on a daily basis, to our planet. A bit of a tree hugger, essentially. And I like to embrace the aspects of unity and community and peace, and not just see them as just terms to throw around, but as trying to live them and trying to be the best version of myself as I can, and also to help people in that journey. It's not easy when you're also constantly dealing with the day to day, and with the pessimistic reality of the world. It's quite challenging, but essentially, I'm someone who really loves what we have, and I try to embrace whatever positivity that there is out there, and I try to also bring it out of people. I try to encourage people. I see myself doing that a lot in my work because I deal with arts, with culture, with fashion, with people. And I think people need spaces. And if you can provide that just by your own self, not even as a platform, then you can definitely make change. So as long as I can help people find their purpose and find themselves and to do better for the overall community in a very individualistic world, then that's optimally who I am.
I love that, because community is so central, and many systems or models have really been deliberate in breaking that community down, particularly amongst us as Africans. So really love that. I'm going to be a little bit provoking today, just to dare and to stretch the conversation on sustainability within the African context, because, you know, in your view, is it possible that sustainability is Africa's recolonization? And as I was preparing for this conversation, I thought, well, I mean, it's one of the things that were native to us and were carried off again, and then is being packaged and being sold back to us. I mean, where it's a principle that is very native to us as Africans, as we've already mentioned, and it's been taken abroad and commercialized, so to speak, and brought back as something that we should buy, as something that we should adopt, as something that we should shape our lives to become. What is your view on the global perspective or the global definition of sustainability, but as it pertains to Africa, and how it's being sold back to us?
Sure. So I think that as Africans generally, we live a very sustainable life, and we buy or we utilize sustainable products without even knowing what sustainability is, because it's so natural to us that you don't really look at the term like, you know, like for instance, I was shopping and living in a very sustainable way before even knowing that this was a whole movement, that this was a way of being and a way of purchasing and producing. So the fact that it is being repackaged and sold to us, I think it's important for us to have discernment, because this happens all the time. It happens with our culture, with our clothes, with our folklore, with our art, with our food. It gets repackaged and sold as a superfood, or it gets repackaged and sold as this like really cool spiritual thing, when actually, you know, this is who we are, grown up with, and who we are. So I think at this point in time, that a lot of people are aware that, you know, if you take the moment to just think of what is this brand trying to tell me, what is this brand trying to sell me, you'll realize that it's not really true. You'll realize that it's just a marketing scheme. And I have to admit that in different areas of our continent, the markets are very vastly different. So I'm sure in South Africa, the selling of sustainable products is huge. And a lot of people are falling for the greenwashing, actually, because it's not really, these products are not made sustainably. This is just marketing.
Labeled green.
Lies.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's pure lies. And if you just look at the labels, or if you just do a little Google search, you'll know that it's not true. But for instance, if we're going to talk about the like North Africa, we can talk about Egypt. Egypt is an emerging market, and it's been around for a while, and they do a lot of local production and everything. And people are not falling for it as much, because there's a lot of like local made, like the sustainability is so obvious on a local level, that when you have this European brand trying to sell something sustainable, it's like you can see it.
It's like, really?
Yeah, it's like, but I buy local, and my cousin works in this factory that weaves this cotton for this jersey that I'm wearing, you know? So
yeah.
It requires a certain level of just being aware and being conscious of how you shop and how you consume things. Yes, they are trying to enter the African market, but they also cannot easily do that, because the African market is quite poor. And when you're trying to sell these, and that's just how it is. That's just a fact, because economically, Africa is a lot worse off because of what colonization has done to us, and neo-colonization is doing to us. So when you notice that these brands are trying to sell in Africa, they won't be able to, especially I'm talking about bigger brands that are trying to pretend that they are being sustainable, or making sustainable products, or doing things for the earth and not for profit. The price tag is not affordable.
Not for us,
The
yeah.
price tag is not realistic. When at the same time, you as an African, you can buy from a locally made, a local brand, or you know someone who knows someone who makes something by hand, and that is sustainable. And you would rather invest in that person because you know how hard it is for them to get the material, or you just love the craftsmanship, or you just want to wear something that's home to you. So as much as they're trying to, you know, package sustainability and sell it to us, I don't think they will be able to succeed as much.
Yeah.
Um, and they may succeed in other markets, such as, you know, Asia, for instance, especially the Gulf region where consumerism is at its all-time high. But I don't think they will be successful in Africa. And yeah, socioeconomically, it doesn't make sense, and also realistically, it's against who we are to support
Yeah.
these
And I suppose
kinds of
this is why I toil with the concept, because
shit.
you live in the West. South Africa itself is very much Western influenced, and so you can get sustainability broadly, but I think when we really delve down into it, and this is what I want us to unpack here, to say, really though, because I think it really just does feel like a business model, another business model, to something that is so natural to us as Africans. How do you think we need to reimagine sustainability in this African context in a way that's more resonant and authentic?
I think it's important to do research. So we start at the research level. We start to understand how clothes were made back then, and how we took care of our clothes, and how we washed our clothes, and how we transformed them from, you know, one garment to the next. I think it's important to do that because there's a lot of data that we need to have, and it's not there. There's a lot of archival work that needs to be found and to be taken care of, and we need historians. We need people that are actually invested in culture and folklore to focus in fashion, because it's very rare that you find fashion researchers in our continent. There are present, but they're not as many as we need them to be, because there's 54 countries, and each country there's like many different tribes and many different ways of making garments and things. So if we start at the research level, we're able to look at our history, preserve whatever is left of it, because a lot of it did get lost for whatever reason. And I will be bringing this up quite a bit because, for instance, I'm from Sudan right now, and our country is completely lost. So our history is completely lost because of the war. So these are things that I think I really hope that, I hope that a lot of African countries are, and Congo as well, is suffering the same thing. So I hope that other countries can, African countries can really look into having this data, this research, this archive. And then from there, we'll see, okay, what worked, what doesn't work? What materials do we have locally available to us? What are natural resources that are just, all over our land? How can we use these to make long-lasting products, to sell them at a decent rate, a reasonable rate for the market? Because if you really, truly want to be a sustainable brand, you don't need to just only make things from what's naturally available. You also need to make things for the vast majority of the country, and that includes training people, hiring people, like trying to get them, help them make ends meet, give them jobs. But you're also supplying the same group of people, the same demographic and whatnot with these clothes. So it's a whole cycle, and it requires a lot of investment, and there has to be this openness to invest in the community and in the culture, because that's how a country evolves and that's how it grows. So this is why, for me, sustainable fashion isn't just like, it's fashion. No, for me, it's important. It's community, and there's a lot of identity within it. And so that's how I think that African fashion brands can grow and evolve if they look at what is missing, and if they from the market, and they also look at what is available and how can they bridge these two together. Then if you want to seek profit, you'll definitely seek profit if you're providing your products to the largest societal groups. So I think that it takes a lot of reflection, and it has to come from the human before the entrepreneur.
before the and I mean, with that, it's also giving me a very strong sense that it's regionalized, right? Because as you're saying, Africa is very vast, it's very internally diverse, it's very it's broad, you know. The spectrum of it, one could never fully cover the region or the continent. And therefore, there is a responsibility that creators and artists and craftsmen locally in each sort of cultural center should be able to mine and to discover and to research what is happening in those in their own regions. Because then it's easier to meet as researchers to draw context and learnings and comparison and differences and the diversity and the beauty, just collaborating on the answer together, I think. I mean, you spoke about, there's this concept, sustainability is often mentioned alongside the circular economy. What is the circular economy?
Circular economy is essentially, consider a circle. Where it starts and begins, it continues. So it's like a cycle. When we talk about circular economy, we're talking about from the first step of, let's say, producing a product. And I'm going to link it to circular fashion, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So let's say you have cotton. That's your raw material. It's vastly available. You use that exact same cotton to make fabric, and from this fabric you make clothes, and then these clothes are then transformed or recycled after they've reached a certain point of wear and tear, and then they're recycled, and then at the end of the day you have some fibers, and then these exact same fibers you plant them into the ground again, so you can have cotton again, or you compost them, so they're used into something else, or these fibers, they're transformed into a whole other product. So what happens is the same cotton that you've harvested from this land, it goes back into the land again. And it's just never ending. It has many lifetimes. So circularity within fashion is very important, because you imagine the raw material in so many different ways, in so many different forms, and so that kind of makes it like more fluid. And the more we do that, the less we're consuming, the less we're exhausting the land, the less we're the less we're causing harm, essentially. And it has a lot to do with the environment. Also, circular fashion equals more jobs. And that's very important, because you have the farmer, you've got the person that does the initial production, the cleaning, the coloring, the weaving, the sewing, cutting, everything, wearing, because you're also a part of it as a consumer. You're a part of circular fashion.
Yeah.
And then and you pay. So when you buy something, you're paying for these people's wages. You're helping with their life. Yeah, and then you're giving them opportunity to do better, to provide food in the table, all these things. And then as a consumer, when you're done with it, if it doesn't fit you anymore, you pass it down. This is also within circularity. You pass it down to your kids, or whomever. You donate it to someone in your community that actually needs it, or you can change it. You take it to a seamstress or a tailor, and you change it into something else. You upcycle it, you recycle it into a rag. Even you recycle it into a rag, and it stays in the family for many, many years, and it's still, a fragment of that piece of, for instance,
that
I'm talking about cotton.
Yeah, that initial
cotton.
Plant. That plant.
Yes, and then when its life stages have ended, you can compost it, you can plant it back, you can use it within your fertilizer. You can use it to make little trinkets, stuffing for a doll for someone you care about. There's so many ways to reimagine things and repurpose things, and every reword, like recycle, repurpose, reimagine, all these are within circularity. So it's a never-ending cycle, and every person is involved in that. It's just knowing how to get into it, or like what part you have to play
in the loop. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's, I imagine, and even our audiences, I'm sure, as they're listening or watching, will say, okay, because integral to how we live our lives in the spirit of community alone, your clothes, well, as a consumer, you meet your clothes for the first time when you're buying them at the shop, But that is able to be passed down from generation to generation. It can be, value can be added to it depending on what it is, if it's jewelry or whatever it is in the family, that if it can become an heirloom. So I think this concept of circularity is also something that I'm discovering as we're speaking has always existed. It has always existed. Very interesting, because even with clothes, like even if you're handing down, and I mean, is it then, because I'm not sure, and the connection we're making here, or the point at which we're meeting here, is around you speaking about fashion and sustainability, and me from a luxury perspective, and really, tethering this conversation within the African context. I'm really keen to understand, I mean, when we talk about, and I'm a marketer as well, so when we talk about the story, where is Africa tracking when it comes to circularity? Have we audited ourselves perhaps to say, is there a metric? How are global conglomerates in fashion or luxury measuring themselves? I'm sure they've got goals of how circular they're becoming, or what does that look like beyond fashion, in beauty perhaps? Is the circularity there? I know from a sustainability point of view, there's case studies that I've read around alternative use of materials, considering, an alternative to leathers or denims, which ends up obviously is not able to disintegrate or not able to go back into the earth as easily. From a beauty perspective, they're looking at packaging. Some of the innovations for the big brands are around packaging or raw materials that are going into the products. I've asked a lot of questions, but maybe just to break it up, the first one was around, as Africa, how are we tracking by whoever the powers that be who are defining or owning circular fashion, and how we're aligning ourselves, because there are the Sustainable Development Goals that we are tracking towards. And the second part of the question is, what is happening, in other industries that are feeding into sustainability, whether it be beauty or fashion, or, well, beyond fashion, because I think we've spoken about fashion quite a bit.
So in terms of, like, from an African context, it's based on, like, company by company. There's and I'm not able to find like an association or an organization or whatnot that's tracking these metrics of sustainability or sustainable development goals. It's usually a brand per brand. So some brands actually started, and I'm not just talking about fashion, I'm talking about everything, like you mentioned. They have specific SDGs that they pick, that they're able to sustain, that they're able to actually aim towards and achieve goals in them. So whether it can be, not utilizing, like not harming a lot of water resources, or creating like reducing the gender gap, and there's many SDGs to choose from. So what they do is they pick what they can work on. They have this niche, and then they keep going on it. Like they focus on it, and it's by company. However, like if you look at the globe from a global context, there's papers like the Transparency Index that Fashion Revolution has created, and I think hopefully the African countries, we can all come together and publish our very own Transparency Index for our African brands, because South America just continues to release every year. And the concept of the Transparency Index is that it rates the biggest brands in each country in the in the continent, for instance, and it showcases, okay, how sustainable are they? How good are they in terms of like labor laws? How good are they in terms of like material and all the, like, how fair are they really to the planet, to the people and everything? So we hopefully we can like come together and really have specific policies and goals together. It's also not very easy for us because every country has its own political issues. So to create policy, you have to enter government, and to enter government, that is a big hassle. Generally speaking, in the continent, I know it differs from one country to the next. There are some countries that are very like supporting of sustainable development and sustainable products and brands, like for Rwanda, for instance, and they're investing in young designers, they're investing in young entrepreneurs, and they truly want the whole made locally thing to be what uplifts the nation and its trade and its import and export and whatnot. So to answer you simply, there's no organization or there's no like
institution,
one spot that you go to figure out, institution to figure out what brands are sustainable. But what you can do, because there's not that many very well-known African brands, there's a handful, whether they're Nigerian or South African or Ghanaian, or Zimbabwean even, or Kenyan. And these names, these are people that have worked very, very hard to get their name regionally and also globally. And what they do is through their work, they highlight how good they're trying to be, or the efforts that they're trying to make to be considered sustainable under like the full umbrella term. Globally, yes, you do see a lot of again, the Fashion Transparency Index by Fashion Revolution reveals a lot about the bigger brands, the luxury houses, and also fast fashion brands, household names essentially. They show you everything there is about their production, their marketing strategy, their PR, all of that. Their factories that they work with in Southeast Asia and Africa and South America. So this really reveals, and it's available to everyone. It's available online, and it doesn't use a lot of jargon. It's good for you to know what you're putting money into as a consumer. And if you want to invest in these companies, you will know whether or not they align with you ethically, and also from a business standpoint as well. So what we do need to do is hopefully create, for Africa specifically, create this like institution, or at least for Fashion Revolution. For instance, I'm the country coordinator for Fashion Revolution in Sudan. And since I'm based now in Egypt, I'm a project manager for them. And so the African Fashion Revolution teams, we do meet and we discuss these things. And we're hoping to collectively make some kind of change, have a database, essentially. Like I said before, we need to gather our history, we need to gather our data. Yes. Without data, you cannot make change.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do these efforts locally, and then we come together as part of the continent's groups, and to see how we can even just influence brands and influence people to just understand what sustainability is, to advocate for it, and also to invest in it, because you can invest in sustainable brands. And in terms of beauty, from my humble experience, like Sudanese brands, especially Sudanese, Kenyan, Ugandan, Ethiopian brands, these are the brands that are mostly around when it comes to beauty. Yes, packaging is very tough for us because a lot of the packaging comes from China, and it's the most affordable. And a lot of these brands are small brands, but what they do is in their products, in their process is slow production. Their products are made from completely natural ingredients. So that is also considered sustainable, because you're using from the earth and you're not harming the person's skin. You're not producing in mass. It's just small batches. So while they can't get the Western or the Western and the Asian packaging production, because it's quite expensive to make packaging in the continent in general. Yeah. What they do is they make do in the actual product. So, there's ways around it. Yeah.
So sustainability doesn't mean the whole thing. I mean, it's because this is important for listeners or people considering how to turn aspects of their businesses. Can we agree that it's important for them to start? So, for example, as you're saying, start with, even if it's the content of the product, or start with the material, or start with how you're producing, and then does that warrant somebody being able to claim then that they are sustainable?
So yes, you have to start somewhere. I will agree with you on that. You have to choose what is most feasible if you're already a business that began, like you started your production. And now you're learning about sustainability, and you're like, okay, I want to fix it. So look at what is available to you. How can you fix it, or how can you do like that sustainable effort? Now, the thing is, let's say, because there's many terms for it. If you choose to work with local products or like with local raw materials, then that makes you like more eco. So you can't just say I'm a sustainable brand and that's it. Especially in this day and age, people are going to ask you, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
So if you are sourcing from local farms, or you're sourcing from local producers, and you're doing so ethically, where you pay them decent wages, or you pay them for like decent pricing for what they get, or higher than the market value, then you'll be like, okay, I'm an ethical brand. If you don't, if you use natural dyes, then you are also considered an eco-friendly brand. So it just kind of depends. If you produce small batches, then you can be a slow fashion brand, and these are all within sustainability.
Okay.
If you do good by your team, by your producers, by your manufacturers, then you can be considered like labor fair wage or fair labor brand. So look at what you have going on, and this is especially for brands or companies that have already started. How can you do better? What can you cut back from? Who can you hire? How can you, like, are you able to pay better? Are you able to focus on a more local end? It just kind of depends what is feasible for you, because sustainability is not meant to be this impossible thing, and the West is trying to make it as such.
It
But
really
no,
sounds like it.
it's baby steps. It's what's natural, what's easy for you to achieve. And over time, as you evolve and as you change and as you become more sustainable, then you're able to make more effort, and you're able to change more, and you're still able to make money at the end of the day, because we're speaking to businesses here. For
Yeah.
people who want to start, you have the leverage actually to learn from the mistakes of other already existing businesses or your potential competition. You have to look at where is my niche? You need to stand out. If you're going to be a sustainable brand, you have to stand out somehow. So look at what is not available in the market that you are focusing on, in the demographic that you want to sell to, that you want to market to. What is available? What's not available? How can I make it better? How can I make it more earth-friendly, human-friendly, while still being able to make a profit out of it?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just about finding that balance. Yeah.
It's because it's really felt like there's a certain accolade, or because even for me, I mean, it's intimidating, and that's why I thought we have to have this conversation, because as you're saying, the West has made it feel like this commercial model monster that only they understand. And that's why I was like, maybe let's decode it, maybe let's break it down. But I'm very comfortable hearing that we can start. I'm very comfortable hearing that you don't have to throw your business out and become purely a sustainable business. There are aspects of it that become business can become sustainable, and you then claim to be a sustainable business. And I mean, in the age of social media and fast-paced culture, because there's a term that you've spoken about, which is slow fashion. I mean, is sustainability tangible in the age of social media?
Yes, it is. Definitely. We choose the kind of content that we see. And you actually do, it's not the algorithm. You actually have the choice to watch certain things, to be affected by certain things, to be moved by certain things. So when we have that control, that means that you get to control what you see. So social media, there's a lot of influencers, there's a lot of marketing. It's basically advertising at this point, unfortunately. It has evolved a lot in the past 5 years. It used to be more fun to be on social media, yes, and to consume this content. But right now, it's mostly advertising. So it's just waking up to realize that everybody, or most of the content creators and these brands, are just trying to sell. They're trying to sell as much as they can. It's all about volume. It's not about the experience. It's not about quality. It's not about the story behind the garment or the brand or whatever it is that they want you to buy from them. So when you break it down to this, it doesn't sound that appealing anymore, and you see right through it. You have every right to be inspired by influencers. A lot of the whole concept of influencers, when they used to be bloggers, they started as to give you inspiration, to help you find ways to dress how you like, within your budget. But obviously things have changed because we're in a super hyper consumer
Drastically.
society. And that's the aim of the West. And just to follow up on the point you made, the reason why they're complicating the idea of sustainability is because now they know how to profit from it. So they want to make it as like out of reach as
Inaccessible.
possible.
Yeah.
Yes. So that they can get your money. They just want your money. It's not personal. They just want your money.
They're in
And
business after all.
exactly. But the way we see sustainability from an African context is that no, it's about community. Yes, you will. Yes, when I purchase from an African brand, I am giving you my money, but actually I'm investing in you. I'm pushing you forward. I'm being your cheerleader, and I'm also helping spread the word about what you're doing. And it's still about community, and everyone's happy. So when we go back to social media, you have to control the content that you choose, and you have to be more awake and more aware. And I think with everything that's happening, especially this year, I feel like a lot of people are waking up with like to see like the truth behind the content that they see, and a lot of it is empty and it's just to sell. So don't be as affected by social media. Use it for good. There's a lot of people who are working hard to spread the word on advocacy, specifically from a sustainable point of view. There's a lot of amazing African brands that you can search. And sometimes all you have to do is just write Sustainable Africa or Eco Africa or something, and all these brands will show up.
Pop up. Okay.
And support them as much as you can. Yeah.
I think on that point then, I mean, at its nature, fashion is fast and cyclical. Therefore, how do we advocate for the change to make it more sustainable? Because there is a differentiation between fashion in the mainstream sense and sustainable fashion. How are we daring, or what are some of the things that African brands can do to contribute, or how are they contributing? Because you work with some of them, how are they contributing to the conversation about sustainability, both regionally and globally?
Yeah. So the African brands that I work with, or the ones that I actually like looking to and research, and I'm very fond of the work that they're doing, they don't follow the mainstream trend aspect or trend forecasting that happens. They know their niche, whether it's the materials they use, the products they make, the people that they want to sell to. They know exactly who their niche is, or at least they're learning. And they're creating these products and they're selling them to whoever is interested in these products. They're not making things that are, for within the trends that the luxury market in the West portrays to us. They're not focusing on the color palettes or the the materials, the textures, the patterns that the West is pushing out there. And yes, it would be smart if they were to do that. But again, the clothes won't have meaning. They will only be worn once and thrown away. They won't be as respected, because you should respect whatever you put on your body. If you respect your body, I do think it's more human. You respect yourself. Exactly. You should care about what is on your body, and how you get it and how it's made. So yes, I'm actually quite fond of them because they're paving their own way. So you see some African brands, they use specific materials only, or they use specific color palettes, or they make specific clothes for a specific region. And I think that's or for a specific season even. And I think that is very smart, because not only does it make you niche, but it also shows that you're standing on your ground and that you're choosing to promote something that's long lasting.
Yeah.
You're selling quality. They're not selling quantity. Fast fashion brands are just copying whatever comes in from the global luxury market, and they're selling it to you in pennies, and it disintegrates on your body. Like, it doesn't last. So I also say this from a styling point of view. I always encourage people to find your individual style and try to experiment as much as you can. But while you do that, do not fall for the trend trap, because 2000 style is back again. The Y2K style is back
trap.
again.
That's
Give it a couple of years. The 80s will be back. The 70s will be back. The 20s will be back. The silhouettes are constantly being recycled and sold to us like it's something new. Or something modern. When actually, if you know what your personal style is, then you'll know what brand to shop from. And you'll just completely ignore all of this. is marketing. You'll just figure it out that it's just marketing.
We're coming for the marketers today, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm
one of them too. Funny enough.
But I think as I've matured in my career, I have really become a lot more deliberate, even with the clients that I'm working with, to say what is the impact that we're making. So particularly, what is it that you find is different about the millennials and their stronger attraction to sustainability? Or consciousness or ethical living, because they are basically riotous when it comes to, they're the same people that a lot of the fast fashion brands are targeting, but there is a cohort that is breaking off from that with a very clear stance towards a more sustainable lifestyle, even at the foundations of, even now as they enter in consumption.
Sorry, it cut off a bit. You said Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
Gen Z are my absolute favorite generation. And it's natural. I feel like if you look at Gen X and then you look at millennials and then you look at, it's just a natural progression. So Gen Z are considered like the most important target group right now because they're ready to deny or they're ready to say no. They're so vocal about everything they're seeing because they've, like, as a millennial, I'm kind of seeing the exposure of how the industry works, of how mass manufacturing is bad and all these things. But Gen Z literally grew up on it.
And they want to do something about it.
Exactly. They want to do change because they don't like the fact that, for instance, millennials just woke up, but they actually want to be the action takers. And they're very bold because look at what they're entering. They're entering a very tough market. They're becoming adults at a very tough time in history. Globally, I'm talking of socially, economically, politically. It's a lot that they have to go through. So I feel for them, but I'm also very proud of them because they are the ones who are ready to expose brands instantly.
Quickly.
Yes, they have a lot of influence. When you see someone in their early 20s, late teens, they will immediately go to social media and be like, don't buy from this, they do that, they expose everything because they actually want to save whatever is left of our planet. And that's actually the gist of it. They want to have some kind of future because they're looking at a world that's diminishing on them and they're not really able to seek these dreams and have these careers and have these lifestyles that they want because of how tough things are for them. And that's why I feel for them, but I'm actually very proud of them. And I try my best to work with them, whether it's training or doing workshops or advising, because I know they have what it takes. I'll just tell them, listen, this is what's going on. Go ahead and do that. Try to steer them in some kind of direction. Right. I don't think they need me actually, but because they're doing so great by themselves. But essentially what they're trying to do is to save a little bit of earth for them. That's what it comes down to. That's the gist of it. So they realize that if they just sit back and they complain, nothing's going to move, and it's just going to get worse. So that's why they're fighting, and that's why luxury brands and fashion brands generally try to sell to them because they feel like if they get on their good side, they'll have a bigger market share, essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's not working now.
They've got a voice and they're willing to use it. So definitely something to be proud of. And they're quite bold.
They're good for marketing as well if you get on their good side.
Their good sides, yeah. Okay. What are some of the brands that you either consume or know? Because I think it would be amiss for us not to mention them here for somebody who is looking to pivot their consumption or their purchase or investment in certain brands, whether it be Western or just local and irresponsible. What are some of the brands that you're enjoying at the moment who are doing just compelling work in implementing some of these sustainability strategies?
All right, I'll mention a couple of brands that I've actually also used. So let's start with Egypt. There's a brand called Upfuse. What they do is they recycle plastic bottles to make bags and shoes, and now they make clothes from it as well. Cute. Absolutely love what they're doing because there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of plastic waste in Egypt. There's a huge population and there's a lot of trash. So the fact that they're using these plastic bags and plastic bottles from recycling units and and helping out or giving jobs to like people in these local areas is wonderful. So that's one. Another's there's two Sudanese brands, Peter and Black. It's a handmade leather band, and they're based now in Kenya. And so everything is made by hand. Like the designer actually
Craftsmanship.
stitches
Wow.
everything. Everything is by hand. And I believe that when they were in Sudan, they were based in Sudan, they would get leather also from specific regions. So they were helping smaller factories as well, leather factories and tanneries. Um, who else? There's a couple of Kenyan brands as well. The thing is, if I'm perfectly honest, I had these brand names memorized because this was actively my work for the past like 3-4 years. But honestly, like as someone who is trying to rebuild a wardrobe because of displacement, it's very tough to be in tune with the whole industry right now. And I choose to do honesty because I can talk about
Tebe
Tebe
Magogo.
Magoga. Yes, I don't want to butcher the name. And I can talk about orange culture. I can talk about the amazing emerging brands from East, South, and West Africa. But to be honest, it's very hard to keep up when you have all these like situations happening around the
Yeah.
continent itself. But yeah, I just had to put that there because I think a lot of us forget that even though these are clothes and these are brands, and there's still people.
Yeah.
And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yes, I used to follow a lot, and because of like being a displaced person at this point, it's kind of trying to still link back and still help even the Sudanese brands that had to move to Egypt now. But yes, to add another brand, there's also Nusi. It's a Sudanese brand, currently defunct, but trying to get back. And they make amazing clothes for both men and women, and it's made sustainably. It's made from naturally grown cotton and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. I really am sorry, because of you're sharing now that you're displaced because of what's happening with the war and in Sudan. And I do hope that as you rebuild, you draw from just the earth itself, because there's also so much beauty. Like I always say, even after a storm, what you
Yeah.
have left is what you can use to rebuild. And I really wish that as a country, as a community, and as a people, you do at least the community itself is able to salvage the spirit of what even you've lost physically or tangibly, but from that you're able to draw some strength to really build yourselves back up into a people that you are becoming. Not that you're no longer a people, but a people that you're becoming, because it depending on how you look at it, it is an invitation to rebuild. And I'm always very intrigued by the process of rebuilding, and I hope you embrace it fully, both for yourself, your family, with your parents, your community, siblings, and just business, and all these designers that I think will draw strength from this process, to rebuild themselves up into something really compelling, because there's nothing more beautiful than a story.
Definitely, yes. And I do hope that's the same as well. I just had to put that in there because when we're talking about clothing, a lot of people forget that this is a huge part of who we are. It's not just like shopping.
Yeah.
It's not a frivolous thing. And when you talk about luxury, a lot of people assume it's, for a specific class. When no, it's everyone deserves to feel luxurious, or to be a part of like the full human experience. So I just had to mention that in there, and I hope that's all right.
Oh, absolutely, we receive that. And lastly, what is your ultimate luxury?
Ah, very nice. My ultimate luxury is having a day off and just walking into secondhand markets wherever I am in the continent. Just like seeing this sea of clothes and seeing the traders excited to sell to whomever, and just hearing their stories. Like this is what I used to do for a long period of time. Actually, I would just go wherever country I am in the continent. I would discover these markets, and I would just spend a full day there and take pictures and try to um write about it, and just for me that's luxury. I know it sounds a little wild because secondhand markets are usually very crowded, but if you go early in the day, you're fine. There's a lot of noise and mess, but there's also, in that chaos, there's a lot of organization as well. So that's what I like, and I'm known in my circles to be, the secondhand market tour guide, and I enjoy that quite a bit. It's just interesting to know how these clothes enter our borders and how these, sell them. It's just, for me, that's luxury.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I'm not sleeping, that's this.
That's beautiful, because I mean, there's pieces that I'm very proud of that I've picked up at secondhand markets, and
Right?
I wore one just the other day, actually, for an interview,
Yes.
and also just the beauty, I think, of possibility to rehome or whatever, clothes, jewelry, furniture, because the secondhand market is so broad. And
It is.
and as Africa, we really have a thriving economy of secondhand, which is sustainability in itself, right?
Yeah, it is.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I will add in the show notes all the beautiful brands that you've mentioned. I think people would want to pick those up, and even some secondhand markets that you love, links that you want to direct us to. I'll definitely add those to the show notes. But it has been an absolute pleasure connecting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity.
And God bless the work that you're doing. And may every opportunity continue to open up to create more platforms for more people to gain access to both the information and the data and the resources, financial or otherwise, that you need to really perpetuate this very beautiful piece of work and the research, because certainly when there's something so beautiful that you kept mentioning when you were speaking about consumption. You said investing in. People don't realize that they're investing every time they purchase something. People don't realize that they invest. I certainly didn't look at it that way myself. It's just something maybe that I've coveted, that I've finally acquired. But the price of some of these things that you pay, however small or big, is an investment all the same. So yeah, I think I have benefited greatly, and I hope my listeners and my viewers will eat this episode up, and really transform or begin to adopt a very ethical, conscious, or sustainable life.
I hope so too. And thank you again. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And let's build together. Let's make better choices and consume better
choices. It's the little bit we can do. I really think let's make this conversation trend, because this is what sustains us as people and as a continent. Thank you, Hadeel. Enjoy the rest of the cold winter.
Yeah, that's what we will.